All right. Hi, my name is Janelle Allen, and I'm a student at Western in second year. And today we're celebrating Black History Month by broadcasting a special day of programming with the theme Black History and Black Futures. And so we have with us today Queen. She's an artist from Toronto. And Queen, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yay, yay, yay. Hey, my name is Queen Kukoyi. I'm calling all the way from Toronto. How's everybody doing? I'm a visual artist, a poet, a mom, among many other things. You can check me out at Queen Kukoyi for more information.
All right. Thanks for that intro. I guess another part that I forgot in my intro, I'm also an artist, and I did some art. I displayed it around campus for Black History Month last year and this year. And so that got quite a bit of attention, but we got two artists on the mic here. And I guess we'll start off our interview. I'll ask you to start off, what is Afrofuturism?
So for me, Afrofuturism is an African diasporic, cultural aesthetic that really mixes technology and history and science. And it really just gives us the idea that we are connected, but the Pan-African experience is connected through our history and through our futures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so next question, how did you begin visual art creation, and has your style changed?
Well, I think I've always been an artist, but I didn't start calling myself an artist till recently, after doing some exhibitions and stuff like that. But my visual arts journey, it stemmed from conversations with my daughter, and we would have these conversations about historical Blackness and reimagining Black futures. And we both were really interested in digital art, so we got a friend of ours that his name's Quentin Versetti, really dope Toronto artist out in Montreal now. He basically taught us, and we collaborated as well on a project called the Baobab Project with Stolen from Africa, to help us alongside other young people who wanted to learn how to create digital art to amplify Black voices.
Mm-hmm.
Has my style changed? I don't know if change is the right word that I would use. I'd probably say that my style alternates back and forth between whatever I want it to, whatever my mood is, whatever I feel will capture the idea best. So I use a lot of mixed mediums to create. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say we kind of have the same answer to that question. I've kind of had a weird thing where I didn't feel like I could claim the title as an artist.
Right.
It's just because I've always been into art. I was kind of known as that kid when I was younger. I was always in art class, kind of doing some super advanced stuff. I loved it. I experimented with drawing realistic portraits to water painting, acrylic paints, even sculpting. And then in high school, at the end of high school, I kind of moved towards experimenting with digital arts. So I would say I've kind of tried out a lot of different things. And yeah, I just never actually sold my art. I never really, I don't know, I felt that I couldn't really claim artist. That feels a bit intense, but I guess I should give myself more credit. Yeah, and it's something that I really love doing. And I would say, in terms of has my style changed? My style has been changing. I don't even know really what my style is. I have to, I guess, build my portfolio more, and I don't know, I guess figure out what type of vision or what style I really want to stick with. But that just comes with, I guess, creating more pieces and kind of picking art back up again, just because I got busy with uni and kind of doing different things. So I'm definitely going to pick up the paintbrush again and experiment and figure out what I want my style, artistic style, to be.
Right. And I think it's dope to have one style, and I think it's also equally dope to not just choose one. I think that as artists, we can exist on multiple platforms, and like we're layered, right? Like we have so much complexities. So I think like it only makes sense that some of us would be likely to have like different mediums that we use to like display whatever it is we're trying to convey, right? Because sometimes digital art can't convey textures the way you may want it to if you're doing like a painting, but then you want to add like other mediums like fabric or like wood or something like that, and that looks better with like physical art, maybe depending on like what your message is, right?
Yeah. And so the next question, what are your preferred mediums and what mediums complement your style or vision the best?
I think like what I use the most is like digital art collaging. I used to like tell like narrative based stories because the idea of my work, I really want it to begin to like decolonize like the Black monolith. These ideas of like Blackness only existing in one or two forms when we can exist in multiple forms and still be Black and still, you know, claim our Blackness. So like, I don't know, I guess it just depends on what, like I said earlier, what I'm trying to convey. Like right now, I just created a visual arts animation for Feminist Art Collective conference that's happening here in Toronto from the 5th to the 17th, I believe. And I did like a digital art piece that I guess I could even call like a short film, really, because it's 10 minutes. And I did it with multiple mediums. I used audio, recording. We did some engineering, creative beats. You know, I took like my own. We did photographs, and I used like other elements in it. And then there's another piece that I'm working on right now that I'm using burnt wood. Like I'm going to burn wood to convey like, you know, the messaging that I want, because I feel like that is a better platform for this particular idea I have in my head, right? So I guess maybe I prefer digital art, but I'm not opposed to using like other mediums as well.
I would definitely agree with that. I think ever since I started, the program that I use is Adobe Illustrator mostly to create my digital art pieces. And I love that program, experimenting with it. You can do so much with it. And ever since I've kind of learned how to use that, I would say that's kind of what I prefer. But I also still like going back to, I don't know, the bare basics, picking up the paintbrush, dipping in the paint. It's kind of a different experience, but they're both super fun. I just think there's so much that you can do with Adobe programs, and I would agree with you. It's, I don't know, you can kind of just do so much with it. So it's super fun and interesting, and you're always learning about new features as you kind of fiddle and experiment with the program more and more. So yeah, it's always something that you're just discovering more as you use it more. So I find that interesting about that medium. Yeah.
That's dope.
So we have a question from a listener, and this comes from Alex. Shout out to Alex, who's wondering what our inspiration for our art. So like, what do you think your inspiration is for your art?
So my inspiration is reclaiming like the Black identity, because I think historically, like, our stories have been told for us. Our stories have been, even when it came to like, you know, minstrel shows and stuff like that, it wasn't like authentic portrayals of Blackness. We were portrayed by white folks, you know, in a particular manner. Like, we weren't intelligent, we weren't we were clumsy, all these different variances. And historically, our stories haven't been told by us. And just seeing like at the turn of the century and with the civil rights movements and even through the abolishment of slavery, artists arose to tell stories of resilience and resistance. And I really like seeing those type of things. And I like, this reclaiming of our own stories. So seeing Blackness as multi-layered, I think it's really dope to be able to tell those stories because, there's the idea like if a Black person is intelligent, then they're whitewashed, right? But they're not whitewashed. They're educated and they speak with intellect, right? And being able to show the diversity in the Black community, that we're anywhere from, sex workers to scientists to, refrigerator technicians, that Black folks can exist on multiple planes and still be Black and still claim their Black heritage.
Yeah, I think my inspo for my latest pieces have been kind of similar to yours. And for me, I've always gone to predominantly white schools. And I even started the first Black student union at my school just because there wasn't really any safe spaces or for Black students, and also and there was just no representation, no recognition, or anywhere where we could get our voice out. And so I not only did that through starting the Black Student Union, but also through my artwork. And I actually blew it up really large. It was a series, 3 pieces that kind of all fit together. And they kind of had they had words kind of hidden in the pieces. So once you look closer, you kind of got to see those. And there were more thought-provoking questions rather than, and it kind of made the students really think about stuff that they had never had to think about due to their privilege. And it was, I think, phrased in the right way where people didn't necessarily feel attacked or anything, but it really just made them kind of consider a new viewpoint that was never really expressed or ever brought to the school, just because there wasn't really any Black opinions or Black, just perspectives present for the girls to, I went to an all-girls school, so for the girls to really reflect on. So I would just say my inspo was to kind of bring that perspective to the people at my school and get them to reflect and kind of realize that there are people struggling. And I guess that was my inspo, and it kind of worked. So it felt really great, and getting great feedback from it, and kind of spreading that artwork here on campus at Western too. It's definitely great, and it helps, I guess, people think about things that don't necessarily affect them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think like any art that creates opportunities for dialogue is like the most profound types of art, because just like looking at it and like, oh, like that's pretty, and then moving forward, like I think it's cool, but I think that we live and have been living as Black folks in this dystopic society, and if we don't, generate these opportunities for conversation and dialogue to create change, then we end up staying in the same circumstances, right? It's revolutionary art.
Yeah, for sure. And that totally ties into the next listener question. And they're asking, how do you tell a story through your own work? And what stories have your recent pieces been centered on? I guess I kind of covered that, the Black perspective and kind of shining light on that through, I guess, dialogue in my piece rather than just the visual aspect of it. But for you, what do you think, or how would you say you tell a story through your work? And
my most recent piece is called Black Woman, and it has X's instead of A's, because I kind of wanted to like reclaim this idea, or I wanted us as Black women to reclaim what Black and womanhood meant for us in all of its intersections. So for the beginning of the project, because this is like kind of like a soft launch for a wider exhibit that I want to do. So I only interviewed myself and 2 other women, but the goal is to interview like 20 to 30 women to capture various stories of what Black womanhood and the intersections of Black womanhood, and, you know, examples of like queerness or transness, or, you know, what it means to be, you know, heterosexual and Black, right? And like, I don't know if you know what the power flower is.
Pardon?
The power flower?
Oh,
Power
no.
flower?
Oh, no, I haven't heard of it.
It's like this exercise that you can do that like shows you the intersections of like your identity, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, the problem with it is it's compared to like whiteness, right? So it's like you are at this particular level of privilege if you're connected to whiteness. So if you're a man, even if you're a Black man, because you're a man, you have privilege because you're a man,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you're a woman, you're not part of like the dominant group. So that means you're oppressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like to take that kind of like I don't even know what to call it, like workshop, like example. I don't even know what to call it, but I like to use that to kind of reclaim these ideas about what power looks like in relation to privilege, and start to reclaim power for ourselves. So the Black Women exhibit is like exploring ideas around, you know, being a Black woman and reclaiming our power, reclaiming our narrative,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So that's like my most recent piece, and basically like interviewing all different kinds of intersections of Black womanhood, to kind of like demystify these ideas around what it means to be a Black woman.
Yeah, that's super interesting, actually. I learned about the idea of intersectionality in some of my classes. And so
Mm-hmm.
kind of the idea that how different parts of your identity kind of stack up and affects everyone in different ways.
Right.
And, yeah, and the story of a Black woman is definitely a hard one. And it's one that it's good for everyone to kind of know and gain insight into. And I love that,
Right.
how you really shine light on that in your work. And I
Thank
guess
you.
for my recent pieces, I can read kind of the words that I had hidden in my pieces, and that kind of the message is just in the words, so I can read them to you. But the first one says, it's actually a side profile of my brother, and so I incorporated him into my first piece, and it says, Black culture dominates pop culture. Rap is so cool. Doing the whip and nae nae is so fun. Fashion trends that originated from our creativity is so trendy. But when another young Black man gets shot by a cop, it's nothing new. Black culture is so cool, but Black issues aren't, right? Question mark.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something, it's a kind
That's
of a thought-provoking, it's phrased in a way that makes it more thought-provoking.
Right.
And that's the first one. And then the second one in the series says, our thick, kinky hair and dark skin isn't desired by society. If it's worn naturally, dreadlocked, braided, or beaded, it's still not beautiful enough. Trying our best to fit in, we bleach our skin and straighten our hair, but even that's not good enough. All because pretty equals light skin and straight hair, right? At least that's what society told us. Meanwhile, white women are praised for altering their bodies, plumping their lips and tanning their skin. Black women are shamed, although the same features exist on them naturally. This double standard is ridiculous. And that's kind of the wording that was put in my second piece. And then for the third and final piece, it says, traditional African, it's actually a woman with cornrows. And so these words are kind of weaved within her cornrows. And so it says, just for context, and so it says, traditional African style of hair grooming. Cornrows have long been associated with the Black community and has become popular amongst pop culture. Why is it ghetto when a black girl wears this hairstyle, but when a white girl wears it, it's trendy? Question mark. So, yeah, the idea of that, I guess, in relation to the question, kind of sending a message through thought-provoking, I guess, dialogue. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like black hair is super political. And like
yeah, it really
it's
is.
just astounding. I'm like, why? Like it grows out of my head. Like why is this such an issue that we are targeted, we're suspended from school, we're fired from jobs, but when a non-black person wears it, or more specifically a white person or white woman wears it, it's deemed as like an aesthetic or like exotic. It's like, ooh, like, or there's this whole notion of, ooh, you must have just come back from the Caribbean, or like, you know what I mean? And like, you know, darker skin amongst the white community, being able to tan is like a sign of wealth, whereas our skin is naturally darker, and it's ultimately seen as as a sign of poverty. It's like or violence, you know, or danger. Like,
yeah, and I definitely wanted. Oh, sorry. Continue.
No, it's okay. You would never be able to understand it unless you're wearing the skin we have.
That's
you know
so
what I mean?
true.
Unless you've actually experienced it.
Yeah, and then it was really interesting when I had those pieces hung up, and it was kind of in a very central area with high traffic, so a lot of people got to see it. And the very few black girls that were at my school, at my all-girls school, they definitely were able to relate to an aspect of every single piece. And per se, like even one of my teachers, she said growing up, she's always been curvier, bigger lips, and she was endlessly made fun of it. And then now she's older, she has a husband and kids, and now her features are so, you look on Instagram, everybody wants to be slim, thick now. And so everybody wants the big lips that she had. Meanwhile, she was, even my sister, she's a bit curvier too, and she was always made fun of just for not being a plank, a wooden board, just like super flat. So yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like when you're black, you can definitely relate to different parts of what I was trying to say. So I think that's why I'm kind of proud of the message, and kind of it's a way for, I don't know, to kind of get people's voices out there and get people's voices heard, if that makes sense. Yeah,
and you said something like super interesting, like, you know, the way you worded it, it was almost to like just kind of be like, well, like, I don't want anyone to be angered.
Yeah.
Meaning like non-black folks to be angered by what it says, even though you're 100% speaking the truth. And it's this it's just so problematic. Like even today I was talking about, you know, the origins of humanity being black, and like, you know, wherever you go on this continent, the further you go in history to look at like the indigenous people, the darker it gets. And I remember like today someone said to me, you know, that I was like anti-Semitic. I was like, what? Like, are you like, you know what I mean? And then it was a white man, and he continued to go on to talk about the fact that, you know, I'm pretending to be woke and how I don't deserve to be at Ryerson. I'm a student at Ryerson University here in Toronto. And I was like, what? Like, and then I was like, how does he know that I'm at Ryerson? But I remembered, like, I have it on my social media. My page is open. So I was like, oh. And like, it made me want to, like, be silent. It made me want to be still. It made me want to make my page private. It made me want to stop, you know, posting. And then, like, maybe a moment later, I got, like, a message from this young woman at, like, Feminist Art Collective, saying, like, how much they love my work, and how, like, they referred me to, like, another, like, art magazine, and they want me to, like, do an interview and be featured in the magazine. And I was like, every time, like, there's, like, these instances of racism, there's, like, for everyone, there's always like this reaffirming of my Blackness and reaffirming that like I should just keep going, and like being visible doesn't mean like when I am told to be silent, that you know I don't have to stay silent, and then I can continue to keep on because you know other people are in solidarity of like the voices I'm trying to amplify.
Mm-hmm. I know, it's definitely true. Sometimes you feel like, I don't know, kind of with the backlash that you may get, you kind of fear even speaking your truth or speaking your voice. But yeah, it's definitely something that should be done regardless. And it's hard taking the backlash because sometimes there is some. There's actually an instance at Western where a prof, he was talking to the class, a pretty big lecture, and there are probably, I don't know, 3 Black students in the class, and he said the N-word with the intent of getting a reaction out of the class, which is pretty disgusting, but it was completely humiliating for the Black students. And the one brave this Black student, she actually spoke out on it, and she really was the voice for the Black community and stood up and said this is wrong. And for doing that, she actually got a lot of backlash. But it just goes to show it is really important to speak your truth and speak your voice. And no matter the crazy people out there that are trying to kind of shut you up and per se put you in your place, you definitely just have to stay strong. And it's just definitely a part of the Black experience, I think.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm also like an executive for Black Perspective Arts Movement Canada. And whenever like it comes near for us to do our annual event, the amount of like hate emails I get, I've gotten this last year. And then I was like, oh, like just super frustrated, even like internalized racism from like our own community too, unfortunately. But I just kept going, and then like seeing everybody at the event after that came out, and like all the youth, and how everyone like really loved having like a safe space that reaffirms like their Blackness, and they're able to engage with like Black folks at all different levels of careers and stuff like that. So they got to meet like Black women in tech, and Dean Dory, who is the Dean of Design at OCAD University. She's a design anthropologist, and a lot of her work is around decolonizing like spaces, and like having her there and having access to like meeting someone like I guess of her stature, but she's super humble. Like this brilliant Black woman, and getting like to like meet someone like her, and knowing that she's accessible to them, like, you know what I mean? It's worth fighting back.
Oh yeah, it definitely
when you see
is.
The results, right?
And with the bit of time that we have left, we'll go to our last question. How does your artwork influence your identity, and vice versa?
I don't think my artwork influences my identity. I think my identity influences my artwork. I think that, you know, being Black and loving my Blackness and teaching my daughter to love her Blackness and being able to celebrate the diversity within our community, like it's just like ultimately inspiring. It really is.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I can definitely agree with that. I think it's vice versa for me. My identity influences definitely my artwork and what I'm passionate about and what voices I want to portray through my art. So, yeah. But I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. This is cool.
Yeah. And let people know about your Instagram and other places where people can see your work.
Okay, right now, you know, everything's under construction except for my Instagram. So if you tune into my Instagram, which is Queen, Queen, Kukoyi, Kukoyi, all one word, Instagram, on Instagram, like, you'll see more. I revamped my page. It looks all pretty now.
Aw, thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome.